Welcome back to the channel. Today for you guys, I've got two choices that I would use for Seattle if I were going. I wish I was going, but unfortunately, life does get in the way. The first choice I decided on would be Decidueye, and I think mainly because this is a deck that I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's like the best deck in format, or I don't think it's like unstoppable or anything like that. But it can win games off of really, really cheesy things like hitting turn one Vileplume and they just can't do anything because of it, or hitting like triple Decidueye turn one, turn two, and there's just not many decks that can handle that in this format. So I think that's ultimately why I'd play it, is just because it would be a deck that could be really strong in this format. And I think you'll see a good amount of it. I think you'll see a good amount of this. I think you'll see a good amount of Gyarados, which is a reason why I bring up this deck, because this destroys Gyarados. Even with the Machoke text, it doesn't do enough. Or Double Hex. Double Hex doesn't do anything against it either. You'll see a lot of Garbador, which I think that might be rough for this deck. It just kind of depends on how you set up, what you discard, how many Ultra Ball you play, how many Level Ball you play, that kind of thing. Ultimately, it's one of those things where I think Garbodor could be, like, you'll see a lot of it, and you can tweak the list to make it better against Garbodor, but ultimately, I think that you shouldn't have to, mainly because it also depends on what kind of Garb list they're playing. If they're playing the Tauros, it's a lot worse for you because they'll be applying a lot more pressure early, knocking out Rowletts, knocking out Oddishes, stuff like that. The Drampa version is annoying as well because they're going to be discarding your DCs and stuff, but it's one of those things where you can play around that a little bit more. You get a little bit more freedom there. The one downside to playing against the Drampa version 2 is that if you Decidueye anything on the bench, they're hitting you for 150. So you gotta kind of play it very, very, very well in order to play it. But this is one of those decks that I feel like it has a lot of good showing, and it will have a good show at the event because it's just so broken. Like, the deck is, you get turn one Plume, you get turn one Decidueye. Not, like I said, not many decks can handle that. So this is something that I would consider, and I only consider Decidueye if you have absolutely nothing else that you're gonna play. Like, if you have a deck that you think is like the deck to play, then that's good. You have a good deck choice there. It also depends on like what it is, matchups, that kind of thing. But you're expecting to see certain things. If you have no idea what you're gonna see or what to play Decidueye. That's kind of the rule. That's kind of what I've been noticing. It was like Night March back in the days, where if you didn't know what you were going to be playing against, just play Night March. You should beat most of the meta if you play it correctly. But it's one of those things where ultimately, like, I'd only play this because of how broken it is. But I think it is a solid choice regardless, because you also beat a lot of stuff like Ninja, and just a lot of decks that are in the format right now just cannot handle a turn one Decidueye or a turn one Vileplume. The other deck I was looking at for this event would be the Garbador deck. Now, the thing about this deck, I have two different versions of it. I would ultimately go with this version. This is kind of more of the European version that won in Milan. I like this list a lot because it's very simplistic. It's very just straight to the point. You're going for Garbodor, but it also plays some weird text too. Like Ultra the Moon is really strong in this because it gives everything free retreat. One retreat with Garbodor is, but you can just dish the energy you'd have attached to it, and you'll be able to retreat it. But this is a deck that I feel like it takes a little bit more skill, it takes a little bit more practice, it takes a lot more patience, maybe is the word I'm looking for. Mainly because you don't want to do things too fast with this deck, especially like Mirror Match. If you play Mirror Match and you go aggro turn 1, turn 2, you're probably going to lose. This deck is very, very laid back, very like, you don't know, like, basically get something that can apply pressure, but then after that, just setting up. So it's one of those things where ultimately I think this would be a good choice going into this tournament, mainly because people don't like some people are used to playing against Garbodor. Some people aren't. You could win free games off of people just going ham with their items, and you just set up 3 Garbodors and just one-shotting everything on the board. So it's one of those things where if you are playing against Garbodor, watch your items. Watch your items so diligently. Every turn, take account of what items, how many items are in your discard, what items are in your discard, and then basically be like, okay, if he delinquents me, I can discard whatever my hand is to make sure I don't discard items. If he decides to, like, if he decides to Hex or whatever, then I'm not in a bad spot. If he decides to Garbodor, I'm not in a bad spot, like the ability lock. But it's one of those things where it takes a lot of like looking back at it. Now, the one piece of advice I can say about playing against Garbodor is get something out that can handle what's applying pressure to you without ditching too many items, and you should beat it 9 times out of 10, depending on what you're playing against, of course, or what you're playing, of course. But from what I've noticed, if you could deal with like their Drampa or their Lele early game relatively easy, you'll have a much hard with low item count. They can't do much with the Garbodor at that point. So if you could try to get like 1 or 2 things out that can handle the Lele and the Drampa and stuff, chances are, unless they just hit like a Delinquent Field Blower combo and just put 5 items in your discard turn in one turn, they're not going to be one-shotting you if you keep a very diligent count of your items and a very diligent count of what items are your discard, that kind of thing. Also, what's in your hand too, in case the Delinquent happens. Delinquent is a pretty popular card in this deck now because they can discard items. It literally gives you damage if they play it into it. So it's one of those things where I like this list a lot. The other list I like too was the one that I showed in my original video, and I'll just kind of go like a quick refresher. The 2 Hex, 2 Stretcher, one Super Rod, the Tauros version of this. Now, the one thing about the Tauros version, I would only consider playing the Tauros version if you're expecting a lot of Genos, Decidueye, Ninja, and anything that can get one-shotted by Tauros. Tauros is actually really good against Volcanion, unless they start the baby. Even if they do start the baby, they can just one-shot it. But ultimately, either version of this deck is good, and either version of this deck is something that I would consider playing into Seattle. And I maybe wouldn't play exact lists. It would just kind of like there's a lot of the time where like the night before I'll hear about something and I'll text something in, something that you don't even think about half the time. So like, oh, you're playing against a lot of Genos, play another Stadium, or you're playing a lot of this, play that. Basically, if you can be flexible with your deck list, you can tech it out for more matchups. Now, ultimately, what it all comes down to is you want to make sure that you keep a balance between what you have teched out for other matchups and how to win matchups, and the overall strategy of just winning your games in a normal consistency route. So it's one of those things where ultimately you got to play the deck a little bit, tweak it, play the deck a little bit, see how it balances, see how it changes, that kind of thing. But these would be my 2 picks going into Seattle, would be Decidueye and some kind of Garbodor variant. I think either one is a good call. If you guys disagree with me, absolutely hit me up in the comments. If you guys agree, or if you guys feel like my lists are wrong or anything like that, please, again, hit me up in the comments. I do think that ultimately, I have a couple friends in Seattle, so I don't think they're going to be playing exactly my lists or anything like that. I think that they're pretty set on some certain deck choices, but it's one of those things where ultimately last minute you can just switch to something random and you don't even know. I've done it plenty of times. I've regretted it many of times, but I've done it many of times. And sometimes I've done it like the night before and it's just been amazing, like it's just really, really strong for the format. So you got to kind of it ultimately depends on what you run into. Like I said, if you run into a lot of mirror match, the Tauros version is going to be really bad because you're going to aggro Tauros them, they're going to discard the special Drampa. You have to touch a second one to knock it out, and then they can just keep going. And it doesn't bode well for you overall, with them just discarding your energy like that. But at the same time, it's definitely winnable. Don't get me wrong. Every matchup is winnable. The only matchup I would consider unwinnable would be Decidueye versus Ninja, if you're playing Ninja. But if you have any ideas on that, please, I'd be happy to hear them, because I don't think I've ever... maybe the only time I've ever lost to Ninja with Decidueye is when I completely bred a dead draw, so I don't know. Either way, I think both of these are good choices. I hope you guys, anyone who is at Seattle right now, good luck tomorrow. Get some good sleep, get some good deck choices in, pick some really, really killer decks that you guys can play. I'm really excited to see what ends up happening out of this format, because this is a new Guardians. This is the first event with Guardians Rising. This is a huge deal. This shapes our metagame going into internationals and all the other regionals going in. So this will be very interesting to see what happens. But if you're at this point watching the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. Feel free to give me a subscribe if you guys like the content. Thumbs up, thumbs down if you didn't. Anything helps. Feedback is always a good thing. It's a gift. Learned that from one of my classes today. But feedback is a gift ultimately. Good feedback is good. Bad feedback is something to improve on, obviously. But I really appreciate you guys' help. Really appreciate you guys' feedback on everything. If you guys like my content, feel free to subscribe at Chubby Chalupa. I stream every now and then at Chubby Chalupa TCG. I'll be announcing when I stream on Twitter and Facebook mainly. Twitter at CrabberNathy914 and at Chubby Chalupa TCG on Facebook to announce when I stream or when I post videos too. I do that. I kind of do both, but like I said, these would be the two choices I would bring into Seattle. There are so many other choices you could bring in. Honestly, this format is blown open. There's so many decks you could play. So I'd be very surprised I wouldn't be very surprised at all if the two decks I played just didn't show up at all. I expect to see some of at least both of these, but at the same time, these are both also these are lists that are pretty well known overall, except for maybe this one, the Tauros list that I built. People know about that overall general build. It's just a couple of different cards here and there. So these are all pretty cookie cutter. That's a good way to put it. It's a good cookie cutter list. Definitely tweak them, definitely change them, do whatever. If it gives you a good base, whatever, that's great too, But ultimately, you will see either of these two decks going into Seattle. I think you'll also expect to see Gyarados, and I also expect Ninja. Those are my top four going into this event. Garbador, Decidueye, Ninja, and this. Garbador, Ninja. Yeah. Okay, Decidueye, yeah. Okay. But yeah, these would be the top four decks I would expect going into Seattle. And if your deck, basically, you have to ask yourself, what does your deck do against these four matchups? Does it beat it? Does it not? Does it beat one but not the other? Does it lose to one heavily but beats all three of the others really, really strongly? Ultimately, it's one of those things where we don't know the numbers of what's going to show up. We don't know who's going to play Garb, who's going to play this, who's going to play that. So the best advice I could give is just play something you like, play something that you are very comfortable with, and play something that is consistent. I don't think you can go much worse than that overall, but again, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate this. These would be my two picks for Seattle if I was going, and I wish you guys all good luck going into this event. And yeah, hopefully this video guys did something for you guys. Hopefully it helped you guys with testing, helped you out in any way, shape, or form. So thank you so much.